Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Hello, Dr. Ihab. Good morning. Welcome to
Morning.
the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thank you so much for taking time out to come be here with me on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here.
Great. Dr. Ihab, my first question usually is an open-ended one. It's for the listeners to connect with the person behind, the business that you do. So if you can walk us through your journey, you can go back as much as you want. If you can walk us through your journey up
Okay.
until the point where you decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to teach.
Okay. Well, a little bit about myself. Of course, my name is Ihab Ismail. I am originally from Jordan. Um, I came to the United States back in 1991 in order to work on my master's degree at Ohio State University. I am a scientist by training, so my degree was in genetics when I went to Ohio State. And after that, the rest is history. I still here in the United States since 1991. I met my wife then, and we got married. We had a child together, only one son. His name is Niall, and he is at Columbia University School of Dental Medicine. He is, I would say, my bright sunshine in one way, and everything I do, I'm going to try to make sure that he leads a good life. And I owe where I am today actually to my wife. She's the one who has always been encouraging me to do the best that I can, the best person that I can be. I'm a very conservative in one way in my own thing and said, nope, I'm not going to take any risk. I'm just going to go with my degree. But my wife has a risk-taking kind of capabilities, and I will share with you my journey a little bit more. But to me, I went on to get my PhD in molecular genetics and biotechnology. And when I was working in my PhD, that was in Virginia Tech, my advisor had a couple of students coming into our lab. And this is when I really started teaching and training those students while I was working on my PhD. And that was back in 1999, 2000, level. So 25, almost 23 years ago,
Yeah.
to think about that. And this is when the seeds of me about teaching, training started to grow. I did not really know at that time. I'm just following my advisor's recommendation, but I went ahead with the training. When I finished my PhD and I became a research scientist and I worked at Nationwide Children's Hospital as well as University of North Texas, I continue that training process. And that has all been at the undergraduate and the graduate level. Now, the point where I started thinking about really teaching is when I published my work and I started thinking, oh, a colleague of mine asked me to help their kid with mathematics just on the side. So I
Right.
went ahead and really started training them a little bit at a time. I thoroughly enjoyed that experience. And one thing led to another over the years. I would say 3, 4 years. I did it really part time, saying, okay, let me do this, let me do that. I will help that student. And I remember people started talking about my work with them, and I started getting referrals from that point on. And then I started thinking about making that as a part-time opportunity for me while I am working. Because of that, I transitioned from research and I started applying to high schools. And I got my first opportunity at the Columbus Academy. It's a private co-ed school here. It's not in my state, but it was in Gahanna, Ohio. And I worked there for a couple of years. And that was my first experience with high school students in a group setting. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. I went on to teach in Texas for another private school. And then at that moment in time, after 3 years of teaching, my wife said, okay, I think we got to start doing something in that regard. And as I was working, I started establishing my practice on my own. The very first name we got, it was called Soar Education, because I would like to soar with the education. And over time, it went through a name of Ihab Ismail PhD Consulting. But finally, we came through the College Prep by Design, because after many years, I started seeing my vision about what I really want to do. And I named my practice after that. Um, every step of the way, my wife has been with me, and every step of the way, she has been the inspiration behind a lot of the names and a lot of the simplification process, because I'm a very complicated person just by nature. And my wife simplify me down. So it's like, here we go. Get rid of all that stuff, and we're gonna go with that. So that's briefly what my story is. I am very humbled to be where I am today. And the reason I lasted for 12 years, because I focus solely on me working as a business, and I work individually with the students, and I tend to customize and personalize and really go into depth with how the student best learns. And that's how I got my reputation, high quality training that yielded results over time. So I will stop at that point, and feel free to ask me any questions along the way. So
Thank you, Dr. Ihab, for that. That was a wonderful recounting of your journey on a high level. I'd like to go back to the point where you decided to apply to high schools, and then you joined Columbus University,
Columbus
Columbus
Academy.
Academy. Sorry,
Yeah,
Columbus Academy.
yeah,
And you said that was your exposure to a set of high school students.
correct.
For someone who's been in research, and I know that you've been in an academic setting, but the environment and the behaviors and the attitudes will be very different as compared to a high school setting. So as a teacher, how was it for you to transition from that sort of a serious place into what, I don't know, I'm assuming what must have been a chaotic environment with the high school students?
Well, life teaches you in a lot of different ways, but we don't really realize that. So when I was working in my through my PhD, I knew that those experiences will come out to fruition at some point.
Right.
So I did not feel that there was a big transition for me, simply because I did work with those students, those younger students along the way, and I and I kind of felt how they learn along the way. When I did work with the students, whether one-on-one or maybe a very small group, whether I am teaching in a formal lecture within within my PhD program, or talking to them sitting with a cup of coffee, um, I felt I have been prepared already to transition to that experience. So when I worked at the Columbus Academy, and they required me to do a demo lecture of some sort for the students, I remember I was talking about anatomy and all of that. I just simply felt very excited to be there. That's it. And I was sharing whatever I know, and the student picked up on that feeling very quickly, and
Right.
they were very attentive listeners. Um, I was actually surprised. I said, "Yep, high school, they're going to interrupt me all the way through." But the idea is they were not. They were actually just listening, and they wanted to participate and ask questions. Um, and I was hired on that spot. After that demo, as you want to go, said, "You're great." The students felt connected to you, and this is I knew that it is something I can build upon after a while. So I hope that answered your question in
Yeah,
one way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It did. It did. Um, it, Great. It wasn't much of a challenge for you. Uh, and while you were teaching, full time to a group of high school students, how did you, you know, how was your time distribution in the evenings like? Because obviously schools, the entire morning and the daytime would go for the school, and then evening is what you've got left. Now, I know people teaching part time for academies is one thing. You just have to finish school, get in there, students are going to be there, you start teaching. But when you're doing that on your own, it's not limited to just teaching, there's so much around it. So, did you start off right away as your own practice, or even after school were you teaching in somebody else's setup?
Well, because it was a part-time, um, if I remember things correctly, I had to have another job too on the side to try to get me rolling with my expenses and what I really needed to do. So yes, there was quite a journey and kind of a balancing act between the two. But I have been very serious with the education itself. Even though I was hired to teach a couple of sessions at the Columbus Academy, I actually spend time there as a full-time faculty in one way, even though I was not really required to. And I felt it was necessary for me to get engaged into that process simply because I wanted to learn as much as I can about the academic institution itself.
Right.
So I was not only teaching a couple of classes, I established the chess club, at that Columbus Academy as a part-time faculty. I do love chess and I play chess. So I thought it would be a great idea to engage with them that way. I attended a professional development, even though I was not required to.
Right.
So I would say, even though they hired me to work 20 hours per week or so, I literally was spending 40 hours or so to
Hmm.
build that. And they have noticed that commitment from my part. Um, in the evening time, of course, being with my wife and my young son at the time, I had also to work a little bit on my own, maybe get a couple of students that I work with. At that time, I wasn't really establishing. This was like back in 2009, 2011. I started really my practice in 2012, and
Right.
11 years or so as you want to go
Yeah.
through. But to me, that's what I did, and it was a wonderful experience. I was happy that I invested my own time learning because that ended up giving me strong recommendations to actually have a full time afterwards when I went to my other opportunity in Texas. Went from Ohio all the way to Texas, completely different atmospheres between the two. But that will answer your question pertaining
Yeah.
to, that Columbus Academy experience.
So, through the last 12 years, have you been in one place, or have you moved places?
Well, I would say most of my time has been in Ohio.
Okay.
Um, so I'm trying to think, okay, 12 years, that's like 2011. I'm
In the
trying to
sense,
remember.
after you
So,
started this current practice that you're doing, college.
well, college prep by design, I have been
Yeah.
very much in Ohio. I
Right.
established myself in Ohio in many different localities in that
Right.
state. Um, and to me, I just went to Texas for about a year or so to teach for 1 full year. I came back to Ohio, and then I continued that practice moving forward. Very much, I would say, full time, between 30 to 50 hours a week sometimes, sometimes 20 hours per week. It depends on what I did.
Got it. And I'm assuming you did all this in a in-person setup, right? Students would come to your place.
Yes, I actually did it in a public library or multiple
Okay.
libraries that are nearby. I do not like to meet with my students in their place or my place because of liability. But I
Right.
thought a public place or a conference room will be an excellent media, and it also a very supportive environment. Everybody's there is learning, reading,
Right.
teaching, and
Right.
that would create that. Yep, I continued doing that in person full time until the pandemic started in 2020. And this is when I
Yeah.
switched completely online. And since that time, I have been doing it 100% online, even though the pandemic is almost gone. But that has
Yeah.
been my process. And it's been much more fruitful. I expanded a little bit beyond the state, different states,
Yeah.
and I found it much more time effective, and efficiency and the quality of my work remained the same. In one way, I still deliver with the same quality as I did in person.
How was the transition for you going from in person to online completely?
Um, it was different. It was unique. I was very concerned about how to use certain tools, such as the whiteboard or the
Right.
blackboard, which company I would be actually utilizing in order for me to do what I really need to do.
Right.
It was a journey, definitely. It took me about 6 to 7 months to feel completely comfortable
Mm.
with that platform, to feel that I have all the tools necessary in order for me to establish, I would say, a very well connected process for the students to go through. And I hope that I know I'm answering in a very brief way, but I will tend to enrich that information a little bit later on as we go through.
That's no problem, because one of the things that I'm going to ask you next is, this is an assumption, please correct me if I'm wrong. It is easier to engage with students, get their attention when you're in person as compared to, online, because you don't have the control of your surroundings, not of your surroundings, at least the students' surroundings. And
Yeah,
as long as students are focused and interested, it's one thing. But if you also have to do the additional job of getting their attention, then it becomes a whole different thing. So,
yeah,
did you find this difficult, or was it not a problem? If you did find it difficult, how did you solve these problems, Dr. Ihab?
sure. It is definitely difficult to work with the students and grab their attention. And that's why over time, I started thinking about an onboarding process for my
Mm.
students to come in. And this is when I learned the hard way, basically. But it's also through reading and research about, the psychology of the mind, and especially with the teenagers and how they develop, and what their ambitions and objectives are. So, yes, I had that problem. And when I started realizing that it is an issue that I need to actually also focus on, I started offering a free consultation for the parents and the students to actually talk with them for a little bit, for 20, 30 minutes beforehand. And my objective of those meetings is to get to know the student and the student get to know me, to break the ice a little bit and create a bit of rapport, for them, to try to tell them that I am here to support you. Um, I give them the idea that your mom and dad are actually investing their financial resources. And in order for us to make those investments meaningful for them and give you a good return of investment, we need to be accountable. So I provide a platform for the students to become from someone who would say, I'm just going to spend an hour with this person, and let's get on with it, to a person who would say, my mom and dad are helping me through. Um, my time is very precious. I give them those quality thoughts that try to engage them so they become self-propelled about what they really wanted to do. Do I see students don't care? Of course I do. But I do not usually work with a lot of those students. I would immediately talk to the parents. I would say, your money is not really well invested. I think your son or daughter need to be a bit more mature a little bit. So if you want to work with me later on, when they are ready, please come back to me. But at this moment in time, let us stop the training and let us focus on that development. Um, if the parents want to continue, even though they know, I would, try my best. But at least in my subconscious, I would tell them, here are the challenges that I have, and we need to work together in order to solve those challenges. So my solution is always include the parents and make the student feel that they are important and they are the center of that whole training process. And then when they feel that they are significant and they are contributing, trust me, more than 80% of the students, they will do a great job listening, paying attention to that 1 hour or hour and a half that we have together every time.
Great. So 80%, I mean, if this new onboarding process of yours worked for the 80% of the students, I think then it was good, because my next question was going to be like, what was the percentage that worked and that did not? I think 80% is a great number.
Yeah, it
And
is. I strive for 100%, but 80% is good so far, and we can continue. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, there's only so much in your hands, right?
that is true.
That's the problem when it comes to working with other people. There's only so much
Yeah,
you can do. Focus on the controllables, which I think you're doing, and stuff like that, and other things
yeah.
that you cannot. Post pandemic, when pandemic struck, Dr. Ihab, what was your since you were also a teacher, in the high school, um in the high school space, would your students know that you're also doing these coaching after school, and would your students come from that information, or did you not let your students know that you did something like this after school and your source of students were somewhere else during your before the pandemic when you were teaching full time?
I'm not sure if I understand your question correctly, but if you're asking me if I would tell or actively tell the students these are the things that I'm doing on the side, etc. Yes, I would tell them. I'm very transparent person, whether I am working as a faculty or on
Right.
my own
That
business.
was my
I
question.
would
Yes.
Yes, I would tell my students, my name is Ihab. I'm teaching here with you in a classroom, but I also have a part-time opportunity, working
Right.
privately with the students one-on-one. Absence
Right.
of any lack of a conflict of interest between the school and me, I would sometimes work with those students in a different setting and I try to help them through. And this is how I actually started. Um, the Some schools they perceive if you are a faculty, you cannot really teach the students privately, and I completely respect that. Different schools have different standards, so I always abide by those standards and make sure that there is a no conflict of interest when it comes, to my students. Does that address your question, if I understand it correctly? Yeah.
It did. It did.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
you saying that before you joined the school, you'd be upfront about this, whatever you're doing after school, and you're saying those school students or your students from that school would be the main client base for you.
No, a lot of the students that I work in the classroom environment with, I really do not work with them primarily after school, but they would tell their friends and neighbors about what
Right.
I do. And
Right.
this is how I build a referral system, based on those. Um, that's basically what I do. I always perceive you need a separation between the institution that you work with and your business as a practice in order for them to respect their boundaries and also for me to have my own boundaries when it comes to the students. Um, and if a parent would like me to work with, let's say that I have a student from a school and the parent is really want me to work with them, I go through the proper channels to have a permission from the school to say, can I work with the students? Completely different area. I was teaching biology, but I was really mentoring them on ACT and SAT and mathematics, and that's completely different category. And some school say, oh, that's fine. It does not conflict with what you do. You're good to go. And if I have that permission, I will go ahead and proceed with that.
Got it. And
Yeah.
currently, your student acquisition system is based on referral only. You don't do any other ways of marketing.
Well, for a very long time, the referral system have been working fairly very well.
Okay.
But I did a transition from Ohio to Connecticut to accept a new faculty position.
Right.
And so of course, my marketing strategy has to shift a little bit from
Right.
referral system to looking into something that is a bit more intuitive, more digital in one way. Um, but I have not really gone through social media marketing yet. I have not gone through anything yet. So that's why I am working with a very limited number of students to help me with the transition from a position to a new one. I'll tell you why I chose to be a faculty at this time, because it has something to do with my vision for what I wanted to do a bit later on. But I still get referrals from Ohio, believe it or not, even though I am working, through that. Um, but right now, the reason I am with you today is because I realized the significance of LinkedIn, for example, the social media, etc.
Right. Right.
And I said I need to become a bit more visible into as many social platform as I feel relevant. And
Right.
now I am starting the process of speaking with individuals um, about marketing strategies. I will have my own personal coach on how to actually develop my business from where I am to expand it a little bit more. But can address those a little bit later when we talk about that. So in summary, I would say I have not used any other marketing means, maybe beside Google Ads very briefly, which I decided not to use at this time. But I am in a process of looking at LinkedIn as a possible, a social media professional network. And I'm also looking into either a YouTube ads or um, some kind of an Instagram or a Facebook kind of a platform. Uh, Again, I'm going to focus on simplicity. I will take my wife advice for that. Always simplify. I don't want to diversify too much, but there are a couple of platforms that I think are meaningful to professionals such as myself, and where I can find potential parents and clients to work with.
Got it. Got it, Dr. Ihab. Dr. Ihab, I'm just going to move away a little bit from what we are talking, just going a little back. Um, and I'm probably, it's going to be a three-part question because, and then I can probably repeat also. So you came to the US, you moved to the US to do your master's, and then
Correct.
you were working towards becoming a scientist,
Correct.
and then you transitioned into teaching full time.
Correct.
So, was this your plan all along? And another thing is, how was, what are the challenges you faced as a non-American when you moved first into the US, and how did you, what are the things that you did to kind of settle in and blend in?
I really never tried to blend in. I'm very proud of where I came from. I tried to stay always true to who I am as a person. I came from Jordan, the
Right.
Middle East. My parents are from Palestine. They went through a hardship. They were
Right.
immigrants themselves, and they were kicked out of their country at a very young age. So I take those experiences when I came to the United States. Um, I felt I need to find um, kind of a new home for me in one way.
Okay.
Sometimes you do feel that there is a different place in life that you need to be at. And there was that feeling all the time, even though I was born in Jordan and lived in there and actually lived most of my time in Saudi Arabia. This is where my dad worked, all the way until I finished my undergrad. I felt that I need to be somewhere else. So when I had that opportunity to apply for a master's and come here to the United States, um, I felt I found a home. Let's call it a second home. Um, there are many reasons why I look at the United States as a home for me. Number one is coming from an environment where you feel like you are a second citizen, even though I was, in Jordan, and I had the same religion as they do. I always felt I am not being treated as well. In the United States, I felt I had a voice. And that was the very first thing that when I came to the United States. And anybody, maybe just me, maybe this is what I'm thinking, but anybody who would come to the United States and feel that they have a voice there, I would say, hey, this place deserves a shot. So I really started working as hard as I can. I abided by all the rules and the laws. Um, I wanted to become a person who very well educated, because my dad paid for my master's degree. God bless his heart, for that. And I wanted to make sure that the investment is very well worth it. So to answer your question about um, was this my plan all along? No, I wanted to go for my PhD. I wanted to become an assistant professor and become a tenured professor and work in a higher education institute, like the universities or anything like that. But as my mother always say, destiny has its own plan for you, and destiny is going to lead you to where you really need to be. And even though I did apply for positions, but I did not go to those positions after my PhD. I always felt there is a purpose for all of this. And I'm just going to continue doing what I really need to do and learn as much as I can. So I am here today because of destiny. My plan has been to go all along with destiny and accept that as fate and go from there.
Got it. And you said you're also a scientist, correct?
Correct, I am.
You are a practicing scientist as well, and that has not been all along. That's just been the last 1 year and about. Is that right? If
Well,
what I picked up from your LinkedIn is correct.
yes, like from a context perspective, in 1999, I started my PhD journey, and I focused solely, of course, on academic research until I graduated in 2004. After that, I have accepted postdoctoral opportunities um, to work with. So I went to Texas. I was a research scientist there. I came back to Ohio. I worked with Nationwide Children's Hospital. I'm a plant scientist, but also I worked with the hospital because I'm a molecular biologist by training, and my skills can go everywhere, pertaining to whatever field I really need to do.
Right.
And so up until 2009 or so, I would say I was basically in research. And this is when I got most of my publications done, and international journals, etc. And in 2009, this is when I transitioned to high school teaching at the Columbus Academy for a couple of years, another year in Texas. And in 2012, I decided I'm going to move forward with a full practice in teaching high school students, one-on-one, private, and move forward from that.
What exactly triggered for you to, or what was the actual reason for you to move from being in the research in 2009 and transitioning to a high school? I mean, was it a forced move or was it by choice?
Well, if you want to say forced, perhaps, simply because when I finished my research science position, you always have to look for funding. And at that time, there was a lack of
Mm.
funding for the type of research. So I said, okay, I need to find something a bit different to help me transition. I did work as an insurance agent. I actually trained myself to become a licensed insurance. Uh, and the inspiration behind that was my dad, because he is an insurance agent and he has been an insurance agent for a very long time. So I said, I'm going to try that. It gives me the flexibility of time. I don't have to abide by an 8 to 5 kind of a schedule. I worked for actually a year and a half or so within that profession. I did not, of course, like it. It wasn't my passion, but it gave me a lot of valuable skills. How to talk to people, how to call individuals, how to be in a corporate setting, how to go through training process. What is the sale process? There was a lot of things that I have learned that I did not think it will be relevant to me, but it did after a while. While I am working as an insurance agent, I continue working with high school students on a very limited basis. So in that way, it might be a forced move because I need to look for something in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it was also choice, simply because at that time I have not really looked back and actively researched for positions in the research. I kind of put it back and I said, I love teaching. I wanted to work with that teaching. Yes, I'm having a difficult time right now financially, but I am going to continue with that process. And my wife has been a great support. I'm going to always mention her name simply because through those dark times, she has always been that sunshine. She would say, "Don't worry, you're going to go." So the importance of support system has been very crucial to me at that moment. My wife has been there, and my young son at that time has always been there to tell me I need to make sure that he is good to go. So it's forced, but I think it's destiny in one way. I have not really looked back and I just move forward with that process. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you for sharing. Um, and Dr. Ihab, so at throughout your journey of running college prep by design, you've always had another, you know, profession to fall back on. You've never made this as your only ways to earn a living. Am I correct?
Well, there has been thoughts of going back to research once in a while. There has been that urge once in a while, to go there, but it wasn't really that serious of a thought. What I was thinking all the time is I do love, training high school students, but what can I do in addition to the ACT or SAT or math in order for me to utilize my doctorate and also my teaching? Because I'm also very passionate about science as a scientist. So my vision has been to solidify um, my teaching methods, working with the students, and then become a consultant for high schools. So right now, I am in actually what I call a transition stage in my life. Um, I have had 12 years of teaching experience, over 1,200 students mentored and trained,
Wow.
with over 12,000 of hours one-on-one and group settings. And now I would say um, I need to think about how to become um, more impactful in my work with high school students. And that's why, and maybe you would have questions for me a little bit later. Right now, I am saying I will never go back to research and become employed by a research institution. That's not what I wanted to do.
Right.
But because I love research, I have tried to combine what I really wanted to do. And that's a reason I accepted a position here in Connecticut at Loomis Shafee, because they are a wonderful community and a wonderful school for two reasons. Number one, they are a high school. That's one. Number two, they have the seeds for a very meaningful biology, molecular biology program. So I am a faculty there teaching biology and genetics, but I am also having the opportunity to develop a program, a research program they call the Guided Research Project, and I am the advisor of that program. And that gives me a lot of incentive to work with that school and to develop that for them. So to make it very brief, I am now combining my research expertise, the one that I had before, and my tutoring, the private one-on-one, and now I am combining them into that faculty position that is going to benefit the students in many, many different ways. On the side, I'm also working privately um, to develop my training. So now I am transitioning to develop an online classes for the ACT and the SAT. And ACT mathematics is to be coming very soon, within the next couple of weeks, on Kajabi platform. And uh, if I want to work with with your company in one way, because you are very diverse in the SET platform, etc., I am considering that very seriously as well. So that's really my transition to go through. Eventually, that's going to lead me to become a consultant for high school to develop biotechnology program, while I also focus on the training and the private setting.
Got it, Dr. Ihab. Dr. Ihab, as a teacher, right? I mean, you've had experience since 2009, and it's been about 11 to 12 years since you started your private practice. Has it been a monotonous journey as a teacher, or has it been, constant updations from your side, be it, technology or being teaching methods? Of course, the SAT board or the ACT board are going to tweak things here and there, but that's not going to change the basics very much. But I mean to ask, from your approach towards the whole thing and your interaction with students, has there been any evolution on that front?
Yes, it has been, of course. One of the challenges as a teacher is actually to avoid complacency within the environment. And to me, just because of the nature of who I am as a person, I do not like monotonous work. I need to challenge myself all the time. If no one is challenging me, I'm going to challenge myself to I'm gonna create challenges in order for me to become a little bit better,
Right.
because I always, I wouldn't call fear, but I always been very concerned. If I become complacent in my work, then that's going to reflect very heavily on how I deliver my lessons, whether private or in the classroom environment. And students are not going to benefit from that. The students are going to pick up on those emotions. I am a teacher. It's another day. Nothing is really exciting. Genetics is still genetics. Nothing is going to change. I have a test coming up. I have a quiz. It's a grade only. No, I don't like any of those at all. Um, so to me, I continually update my curriculum when I work with the students. I continually work on my delivery and methodology on how to make my teaching a bit different. And one thing that I have learned all the time, if I am able to engage the student in that process, to make them to be the centerpiece, they are going to work with you by heart to make sure that they actually become very successful at what they really do. Um, and so, to answer your question briefly, um, I am continually working to make sure that I am not bored with what I do. Um, and even though the content remain the same, the delivery will always be different for each student, because I deal with them individually and I do not standardize my approach to all of them. There are certain things that I can standardize because it's very beneficial for them. Like I would tell them, hey, the ACT is 35 minutes in the science and 40 questions. I'm going to standardize that for you. But
Right.
when it comes to how you're going to work on it, I'm going to personalize it for you. And that always creates an excitement for me to learn about how the student learn, how to develop their program for them individually, the frequency of the training, what time of the day I want them to do the homework. That takes a lot of depth and a lot of work with the students to give them where they need to be in a short period or a long period of time.
Got it. And another thing that I saw while I was looking up about you is that you talk a bit about ADHD, and you've also have certifications on the same. How did that happen? I mean, was it because you found your students to lack a lot of attention and hence you did that, or
Um, it started very gradually, actually. And as I said, it's kind of learning over time. Um, Now, when I work with the students and I have my consultation with them, I go through a checklist of questions that I want to learn about them as much as I can. And when I started realizing that there is a lot of learning challenges with my students, for example, ADHD, ADD, dyslexia, um, uh, kind of lack of attention in one way or another, things that have been clinically diagnosed and they take medication for, and things that they are not diagnosed for, but the parents' observation, they would say, my son or daughter are really distracted kind of all the time. Um, so there has been a lot of um, development along the way. So me being a scientist, understand a lot about molecular biology, my interest in neuroscience in one way or another, I said, I'm going to get certified and learn a little bit more about those learning challenges. So
right?
I took an online course. I went through a rigorous curriculum and test and assessment, attended a couple of workshops, and I got my certification. It's a certified educator in ADHD, and I felt that has empowered me a little bit more about what different techniques and strategies I need to employ with those students who lack attention, not because of their choice, but because of who
Yeah,
they are as people, and how to make them better equipped, as a way. So I had to learn a little bit about them. I had to learn a little bit about techniques. I had to learn about their medication. And I'm not a medical doctor, of course. I would never advise anyone in the medication practice. But
yeah,
once I learn a little bit about their medication, I understand how it works at the biological level. And I will try to understand a little bit about when is the best time for me to tutor them, when is the best time for them to do their homework assignment, and that has really improved their performance from increasing by a 1 point or two in the ACT, or a 20 point or 40 points in the SAT, to
right.
become 6 point and 7 points or 200 points, to go from a 70th percentile or 50th percentile to the top 10 or top 5 or top 1, as you want to go through, even with ADHD and all of that. Yeah.
Got it, Dr. Yap. Just to continue a little bit more on this topic, right? Your teaching approach, how what are the main things that you have to be aware of as a teacher when you're teaching, normal students without any of these versus students with one of these diagnoses?
Uh, we are very familiar with that triangle that will connect um, the teacher with the parents and then the learning environment, where the student is actually in the center of that triangle. So I focus on those three issues. Throughout my consultation, I try to understand a little bit about the mindset of the student by a series of questions, just a normal conversation. It's not like saying, hey, question number one, what do you do? No, I don't do that. I really talk to them and I try to decipher a little bit about what is their best qualities. And I try to get the student to understand that they have a lot of strength associated with them. So to me, if I come up with a struggling student by nature, I always try to implement a positive mindset throughout my conversation. So in the back of my mind, that is going to be my compass, is to make the student realize they have a great potential without really lying to them. I'm telling them, you actually have that innate ability, and I will tell you why you have those innate abilities from their own stories, from their own word. I pick up on those positive, and I try to give it back to them. So that will be point number one, is the student and their perception of who they are. If a student
Right.
is overly confident, I try to kind of make them a bit more humble. In one way, I try to
Right.
put them back to earth and saying, yeah, you can be all you want to be right now, but you need to show some humility in what you need to do, because that's going to be the driving force of how you're going to succeed in a harder environment in one way. I talk to the parents, the mom or the dad, or whoever the guardians. And that would be a second point that I always focus on. How do the parents interact with their children in one way? Are they supportive or are they absent? Do they provide the environment for the student to learn, or is the student very much left on their own? So, without, of course, interfering with any kind of personal attitude or aptitude, I just try to understand how supportive are they. They are, with their kids. That will be point number two. Number three, of course, is the environment, the school itself. I made it a point for me to actually look into different public schools than private schools and understand as much as I can about their curriculum. That's why I expand and I ask questions and I go to meetings. So when a student tells me, oh, I am at, for example, a New Albany High School, one of the public schools, but one of the exclusive ones, I would say, oh, I know the school. I know the math curriculum. I know the chemistry. I know the English. I actually know a couple of teachers from there. I know how they teach. I met with the director. And so I immediately kind of know where the student is coming from. So within Ohio community, I studied and looked at over 60 schools, and I became familiar with their curriculum and what they do just by looking at their website and what their schedule is. And because of technology, sometimes the teachers make it a public open access to their curriculum and what they wanted to do. So I do that. And if I need access, I would reach to the teacher, and a lot of the teachers say, of course, I will share with you a couple of things that I do. And I learned from that experience. And that's what I did. So all of this are in the back of my mind when I do a consultation. And these are the main 3 points that I focus on to understand where the student is and what the student want to be.
Got it, Doctor. Thank you so much for sharing this. But when it comes to an actual class, let's say, for example, you might have a 50-minute class or a 30-minute class. Do you change these things when it comes to dealing with students, who might have ADHD or ADD, dyslexia, and stuff like that? Do changes happen
I
at that
do.
level?
Yes, I do. Um, I kind of set my sessions to be hour and a half in length, 90 minutes when I really work with the students one on one, because I found that period of time is very meaningful. The first 10, 15 minutes we review and reflect. Then we go through some kind of a training into whatever subject they wanted to go through, and that sometimes take another 20, 30 minutes to establish that. And the last maybe 15, 20 minutes, we go through a reflection again and a review and an application of what we learned. So
Right.
it's a very dynamic environment. Um, does it change? Of course it does. Do I cut my session short sometimes based on them? Yes, I do. I'm not very stickler to say we have 90 minutes. We're going to stick with it, or you're going to lose it. I try to be as flexible as possible as a person and an educator, but I also try to be aware of my business practices and
Right.
what I really need to do to become more efficient. So, and a lot of times with an ADHD students, I rearranged my timing to become 45 minutes because that's the span of time they can really work with.
Right.
Sometimes I make it an hour, so I do change the timing a little bit. Um, and I do try to work with the parents to make sure that our plan overall is not being interrupted and the
Right.
student is gaining the quality training overall. And for me, I would say the compensation will remain the same without losing that time too.
Right.
So does it create logistical issues? Yes. But I became to learn a little bit on how to anticipate that and how to work with that. Um, so I do change the timing, and I also do change the approach. Sometimes the students is very much ready to work with me, and they do not need review. I would just dig immediately into the training, uh, and based on my intuition with them, I will try to give them difficulty questions, harder questions. Sometimes I found it very um, necessary to immediately go through a very challenging questions and let them think very hard on their own. Sometimes I guide them through. So as I said, because I customize my training and I personalize it, I am very perceptive of how the student is thinking at that very moment in time, and I try to adapt my strategy with them to make them feel comfortable as you go.
Got it, Doctor. Yeah. For a typical student, right? How many hours do you need to complete training for a SAT test or a ACT test?
That honestly depends. If a student comes to me and say, Dr. Ismail, I have a 17 out of 36 on the ACT, and my aspiration is to go to a 28, I will develop a program for them. Of course, consult with them. I will know their academic program, what they are capable of. And I would say our training is going to take between 20 to 30 hours over the next 3 to 4 months.
Right.
And we need to do a program to help you, do that. Um, a student would come and said, I am a 32, I just need 2 points. Said, okay, we will work with you for a couple of sessions and let's work together into that very specific subject area. And I will assess you before and after, and I will make sure that you get the 2 points that you really need. So on average, if I want to say, I found a lot of the students require between 10 to 15 hours of a training one-on-one, whether it is comprehensive or specific. The extremes are 2 to 3 hours and 20 to 30 hours. These are really the extremes between the two. But I would say average 10 to 15. That would be an average.
Great. When you said extremes, I believe, especially on the longer side, it's for the students with ADHD or ADD. Am I
Correct. And
correct?
yes, and especially those students who have very low scores and they have a higher aspiration. Um, Here in the United States, I'm not really sure about other parts of the country, there is a students who would have a very high academic GPA, but yet their standardized testing is really, really low. And there has to be some kind of a reason for that kind of gap in between. Sometimes it's innate, sometimes it is behavioral, sometimes it is because of learning challenges, sometimes the grades are really inflated in schools and do not reflect the actual meaning and the actual intellectual ability of the student. We have a problem in the United States overall. That's a different story. I can go on and on, but 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 for me as an educator, I try to kind of bridge that gap between who they are really at the intellectual level and what their potential is going to be. I do reject the students who like that I know I cannot help, like a student who would come at 14 or 15 and they want to have a 30 and they have that high aspiration because their GPA is really, really high. I would say you need a lot of work, not academically, but also mindset wise. You need to be in the mindset to make sure that you work very well. I try to give them guidance to help them through. Here are the steps. And I would tell them, if you would like to work with me, I want you to do these three things or four things on your own first. Then you come back to me and prove to me that you are at that level. Then I can actually help you push a little bit harder. Because there are things that I cannot help them with, but parents and the students can do to modify and make sure that they are ready to train. Make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's very insightful when you spoke about the GPA and the standardized test being, you know, not at the same level, having a bit of a disparity. Uh, I mean, of course, this is that's something I know that you can go in depth, but on a high level, if you have to bring it down to some important, significant things, why so? Or rather, my question would be, what does the GPA test the students for versus these standard tests such as ACT or ACT?
Okay. A very basic reason that grades do not reflect the actual intellectual ability of the student is because of grade inflation. And each school, they have they have a report card that they need to abide by in order for them to receive certain level of funding and everything that they really need to
Right,
do.
right, right, right,
So to me, the schools aspires, of course, to teach. They have a very good intention to teach their kids, but that is not accomplished a lot in public schools or maybe certain private schools, etc. For whatever reason is.
right,
So when I work with the students, and because they came from an international background, I am always on the look for what is really the world is looking
right,
for a high school student, not that particular school. Is the student who is receiving an A plus in calculus in mathematics is actually an A plus in calculus in mathematics in one way? And the short answer is no, they are not. They are very likely to be at the B level, if you want to be realistic. They're
right,
not 110%, they are maybe an 80, 85%. So that's going to be one component of why there is such a disparity between the two. The second one is really comes from the teaching itself. When the teacher provide the student an opportunity to test, that test can be very generic in one way, and it can be very easy to do, versus it's not really difficult. It's still test relevant content, but not
right,
at the very high level.
right,
For example, I can tell you what is the integration of this function between this point and this point, and I give you some kind of an equation versus a word problem that allow you to orchestrate that equation and to make it better. So we tend to have the former kind of type of questions, and we tend to neglect a lot from the latter. And in standardized testing, and this is true, by the way, for the ACT and the SAT. If you look at very old tests, they were very difficult tests. If you go to 20 years ago for the ACT or SAT, it's difficult and challenging. But if you look at the SAT and the ACT in the 20s, they're actually getting easier. The type of questions are easier. Um, and we have a problem with that. And
right,
they know that. And it's going to get easier next year. For the SAT, even though they call it adaptive SAT, I have a feeling it's going to be easier into what they really need to do. And so that create a conflict within the student mindset. And that creates a problem by itself. If the students see themselves in a certain type, they are not, and that creates a confidence issues. It creates competence issues. The third thing that I would say in a nutshell about why we see such a gap in between is because of, um, and that's going to be very difficult to digest a little bit because it's very indirect. The higher education institutions at the very top, they're actually making it extremely confusing and difficult to pick high school students who are at their level of competence that they really need to be. So I would say that there is a major force at the higher education industry that is also negatively impacting how we work at the high school level and the transition level. So it's a very difficult question to answer very briefly, but all I can say, we have, and I'm not an alarmist, but we do have a very big problem, maybe in how we perceive education, and it needs to be completely rethought in how we can work it out. And standardized testing is a symptom of that problem. It's not the problem itself.
Great. No, but I must say you did a great job at keeping it brief and short. I did expect, you know, but yeah. My next question was, when you said you talk to students, and then when you were talking about the gap between the GPA and the standardized testing, it doesn't match. You ask students to go back with certain advice and do something and come back, right? What I wanted to ask was, is it the knowledge of the subjects, or is it other things to do with their attitude and mindset?
Um, it is both. Of course, knowledge is very necessary in order for you to succeed at any kind of topic, whether it is reading or English or mathematics or science. Um, I would say that content in itself is not really a major contributing factor, especially for students who are at the 10th or 11th or maybe senior level. Um, but mindset and discipline and time management are three other contributing factors that will impact their performance on the standardized testing. Um, I would tell the students a lot of the time, if you want to be a very good learner, and if you would like to really perform very well in standardized testing now and later on, you have to develop a certain set of skills that are short term and long term for you. And the short term, of course, is to tell them how to uh, eliminate, a false option. That will be what I call a short term
Right,
advantage.
right,
But for you to actually become excellent at the content and the performance and to become consistent, you're going to have to develop a different set of skills on your own. um, I would tell the students, I would give them always the analogy. If I want to give you directions to come from your home to mine, I can give you a long way, going through the highway and going through the traffic lights, but I can also give you a shortcut on how to come to my home. But if you want to have a shortcut to come to my home, you're going to have to actually know the other alternatives first. Because if the shortcut is closed and kind of not working, you need to go to the highway and come to my home, even though it's going
right.
to take you a little bit longer. Um, so I would tell the student the shortcut comes to you only when you earn and when you know the way out, when you know different methods of solving the very same problem. So these are the kind of skills that I believe they need to know to develop those skills. And that's in a nutshell what I want the students to begin to realize and to learn. That requires patience, humility, working a little bit with time, and understand what their challenges are and accept those challenges and then go over and overcome those challenges.
Got it, Dr. Ihab. Dr. Ihab, you also mentioned briefly about, you're creating a course to put it out on a platform like Kajabi. So far you've been doing one-on-one live sessions, interactive sessions.
Correct.
So are you also looking to go take the route of creating self-paced courses? Is that what's the plan going ahead for you?
Yes, I'm actually going to try to make it as unique as possible. Was as it's self-paced is very important, but it's going to be me, giving them video tutorials of how I solve a problem and the questions. But I'm going to also integrate that with live sessions along the way. For example, maybe on a weekly basis or every other week, I would tell my students who are participating in my program or
Right.
purchasing the program, I would tell them on a Friday in the evening, I'm going to have a live session, 7 to 8, and we're going to discuss whatever questions you would like to discuss on that platform. Maybe give you a couple of ideas, more strategies. And I will try, of course, to learn a little bit how to make it more effective along the way. But certainly, it's something that I would like to offer my students because I think it's going to give them a sense I am not very far away from you. I am here if you really need me. And I kind of try to help you the best way that I can. I'm a real person, and I wanna support you the best way that I can to make sure that my program is successful for you and you are happy, with your performance moving forward.
Got it. And Dr. Ihab, another thing, usually in the world of course creations and launching and selling and all that, right? One of the things they say is sell it before you build it. So, did you validate the need beforehand with your students, before embarking on creating a course and spending time on it?
I did. Um, and I have created kind of a very small survey along the way, and I did it from time to time along the years. I have not done it until now, as you can tell. It's been 11 years or so. So I had a lot of data that I can really build on. Um, but one of the things that I would say is economic factors affect the method of delivery. And my understanding is there are, of course, parents who are um, able to afford, one-on-one private sessions,
Right.
at a level of $100, $200 an hour of some sort here in the United States. And there are parents who would love the best for their kids, but they cannot, but they
Right.
still deserve that high quality training. Um, so I would say there is a big need for self-paced, more economically friendly, affordable platforms that are high in quality and that also provide the parents an outlet to give their kids the best chance to compete for scholarships and everything else that they really wanted to do. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I am trying to create an online course that is reasonable in price, that the students can go through, combine it with a live complementary live sessions that the students can feel they're dealing with uh, an authentic educator that they can work with, and hopefully they can get the best of the two worlds. Um, if the student is very self-sufficient and they're really very serious students, this platform is going to be extremely beneficial for them. If the student actually not self-sufficient and require a lot of training, then it's not me who they need help with. They have to really look at other professionals who can help them with a different mindset or problems that they're going to really need to do, and then they can become ready for a training as we want to go through. So I am very straightforward when it comes to those with parents. I would tell them, you're not ready with me or you are ready with me. Do not waste your time doing this right now. Invest your time in doing this right now. So I give them my best advice to help them not waste money, not waste time, but to do really the best they can with what they need to do.
Got it. Got it, Dr. Ihab. And is this course completed, built?
Well, I am focusing on the ACT, and I have completed the ACT mathematics section that I am focused on, and I'm going to roll that one to begin with.
Right.
So I am working on the other three sections of the ACT. I'm not going to focus on the SAT for now because SAT is going through different changes, and I
Right.
want to wait a little bit to see what those changes are, and then I will go into it a little bit more. But ACT mathematics should be ready. We are in June 23rd, maybe in the very first week of July. I will begin email campaign and LinkedIn and tell my friends and tell other teachers and college counselors. I'm telling you right now, this is what I'm trying to do. So I am hoping it will be successful. I am sure it's going to go through, periods of refinement, knowing what works and what is not. I'm going to be very receptive to that, and I'm going to continue improving on that course to make it the best I can make it, and then move forward.
Got it, Dr. Ihab. Now, coming to the tech part of all these things that connects everything, just a few questions on that. As a course creator, as a trainer, as a coach for all the test preps, right? When you decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to do a self-paced course, I'm going to build a course. Um, how did you process your thoughts about having a tech software? Did you directly know from a long time, there's something called as Kajabi or any other tool? Or where did your research start and how did you land up at Kajabi?
Well, the simple answer for that, I did not know anything about technology. I'm not a tech savvy at all.
Right.
I had to start it from scratch. So I have booked appointments with different consultants in the
Mm,
technology area.
right.
Um, uh, One of which was, maybe
Deepak.
your
Okay.
partner Deepak was one
Right.
of them. I actually forgot how I came in touch with him. I think it was through LinkedIn to begin
LinkedIn.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah, through LinkedIn to begin with. And I booked a phone call. I understood a little bit, and I wrote down a lot of notes about what I need to do. And for the things that have potential, I keep them to look at them a little bit later. I kept yours because I think it has a great potential. But I would say I kept 2 out of 10. So I spoke with about 25 plus different consultants over the past 3-4 months.
Wow.
And I came up with four that have potential. One of them is Kajabi. One of them is called Samcart. Um, and another platform, I actually, because it's not very good, I completely forgot its name now. It's like I forgot what it is.
Okay.
But to me, and I kept yours, of course, as a platform. So to me, I love number three. If I have three options that I can
Right.
really pick from, it will be easier for me to tackle. So with Kajabi, I'm actually taking a risk. I do not know anything about it. I'm starting to learn just a little bit, and I
Right.
give myself July 3rd as my date to launch. Um, and I want to see how it really works. Samcart, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but it's also a platform to create an online course with funnel system and everything else. But I have not really been active on it. I like Kajabi a little bit more because it does have a bit more capabilities, what you want it to do. And because I heard several consultants that I worked with, actually, their courses are on Kajabi as
Right.
well. So
Right.
so I kind of get to know a little bit more of them. Now I remember Coursera. Coursera is another online course that is very popular, but their compensation is completely not working for me. It does not work. So
Okay. Coursera. Okay. I'm surprised because I thought Coursera was a platform that they are the ones who offer programs. Okay. Maybe I'll have to. I think it's been quite some time since I checked them. But from your, limited experience, as you said, you're not tech savvy. You've spoken to 25 consultants, I think, which should have gotten you up to speed. As a course creator, being you, what are the components you think that makes a good platform for course creators, Dr. Ihab? The essential ones.
Well, maybe I am the wrong person to ask about what will be the platform. Um,
Okay,
because
no, 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 no. I'll tell you where I'm coming from, and I'm asking you.
Sure.
Uh, this is consider me asking as a creator of platforms
Okay.
to the consumer of platform. There's always a gap between creators and consumers, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes. Okay.
I don't expect you to be tech savvy. I am just asking, in your imagination, if you had not
Uh-huh.
known anything, what are the
Uh-huh.
things that would make a workable uh, online course creation platform for
Oh,
you,
I see.
like
Okay.
that? Yeah.
Uh, um, yes, now I understand your question. To me, I would love, for example, to say for somebody to come and tell me, Ehab, here is a platform for you. All you need to do is put your content in as a video, as a text, audio, whatever you want it to do. And we're going to market for you. We are going to, I don't want to do anything else. I'm a content creator. I
Right.
created my content and I put it there. I don't want to deal with marketing. I do not want to deal with any of the technical issues associated with it. I want to make
Right.
sure that a student comes in, click on my course, purchase my course, um, learn from it, and do not have any technical issues along with it. That's going to be a dream a platform for me. I honestly do not think that Kajabi is that yet because I feel that once I put my content in, I have to learn a little bit about email campaign. I need to, do things on my own in order to create a marketing campaign. So it's not very automatic, and it's gonna require me a lot of work. So once I put my course in, that is one of my big concerns, um, of whether or not I am able to, of whether or not I am able to to do the marketing effectively. Make sense? Or to create
Right.
or to capture clients. Am I making sense?
Got it. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally, totally. Yes, Dr. Ihab. So, Dr. Ihab, I think all of the things that I wanted to talk to you from, your journey to your teaching methodologies to your ideals and, the tools. Thank you for sharing, because I think you said a very important thing. As a course creator, you're looking for a platform that can do everything. You just want to focus on creating content alone.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, that
And it's
gives an
very simple.
insight.
It's very simple. You
Right.
call me content creator. I'm not a marketer. I am not tech savvy. I am not. I'm just a content creator. That's all.
But I think but you've now realized that all these platforms and tools out there, they facilitate that, but you'll still have to find someone to do it if you want.
Yes, I mean, I still do, and I kind of understand that. There is perhaps within the AI technology nowadays, perhaps the AI would say, "Oh, Dr. Ihab Ismail, um, he's doing ACT. Here is your marketing strategy. Here is how I'm going to do it for you. Just give me $100 per day. Let me go ahead and do everything for you, and you're set to go." Perhaps there will be a time like that. I do not know. But AI is a completely different story. There is a lot of concern, ups and downs about it. We will go from there. So,
Got it, Dr. Ihab. All the very best for your launch on the July 3rd. Um,
yeah,
and yeah, but thank you so much for your time. It was a very valuable conversation with you. And thank you for sharing all that you've been doing in the teaching world.
I appreciate it. No, thank you. It has been an honor being on that platform. I see that what you do is going to have a lot of benefits for a lot of educators. And I'm glad to be at least sharing some of that knowledge. Hopefully, someone will find it meaningful, learn from the mistakes, and put it together. And if they want to reach out to me, they can always find me on LinkedIn, and I'll be more than happy to share what I know the best way that I can to help someone else who is just starting to become better at what they do and amplify the learning kind of across the platforms. So I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Ihab.